Hey everyone, welcome back to Wixfix. I hope you're having a fantastic day. Today's video is the second episode in our Editor X Simplified series, where we take the complicated Editor X and we simplify it. In the previous video, we covered height and all of its dynamic values, and in today's video, we're going to be covering width. But if you did miss our last video, I will leave a link in the description if you do want to check that one out first. But let's go ahead and get started. The first thing I'm going to do is kind of cover the different values that we have here in Editor X. So I'm just going to pull out this little shape element right here, and we're going to switch it over to fixed from fluid. And you're going to notice that the width and even height is set to a pixel value. Now pixels are not dynamic or responsive values, and they're just a set value. So if I shrink the screen down, you're going to notice that it stays the same size. If I make the screen really large, it's going to stay the same size. However, if we switch this over to fluid, you're now going to notice that it switched it over from a pixel value to a percentage value. Now when I shrink the screen down, you're going to notice the little shape element gets really small, and then it gets really big on larger screen sizes. So that is basically a dynamic value here in Editor X. However, if we click this little percentage sign, we're going to notice other values that we can also apply to it. For example, now we can already see the ones that we've tested, which is pixel and percentage, but we also have viewport height and viewport width and even calculation. Now the only other one that I think you guys would benefit from really in this video would be viewport width. Now viewport basically takes up the user's screen size. So if they're viewing your website on a smaller screen, it's going to be the screen size of that screen. For example, if I delete this shape element and add a container, just like this, you're going to notice that automatically it is set to 34% here. And if I switch this over to viewport width, you're also going to notice it is set to 34 VW. And that is because 34% of the parent container, which is the section or the website, is still 34%. So this is taking up 34% of the width. However, if I just go ahead and set this to maybe 90, like this, right? And let's go ahead and add another container inside of it. We'll make this one blue. And we'll just set this one to 100% here as well. We'll make sure it's centered. And you're going to notice it basically took up 100% of its parent element, which was the gray box underneath it. So if I come over to this container box, let's just give it like 500 just so we can see the top and the bottom, just like this. So this blue box is taking up 100% of the parent element, which is this gray box. However, if I grab this container box right here and I set this to 100 VW, you're going to notice it takes up even more space because it is no longer taking up 100% of the parent element. It's taking up 100% of the screen size that your user is on. So this screen is really long, so it takes up the full width of the page. So you might be wondering why or when you might want to use percentages versus viewport width. And my answer to that would be maybe for the main container that you apply to the website, you would use viewport width, but then maybe anything that you put inside of this container box, then you would use percentages. So it'd be something like that. So percentages I would use inside of the section container, and then the section container itself, I would use viewport width. And if I set this to like 70% or viewport width, and I shrink down the website, you're going to notice that this section gets really small on smaller screen sizes. So what I would probably recommend is kind of mixing dynamic values with non-dynamic values. For example, maybe 70% of the page or 70 VW in this section looks really nice on a larger screen size. However, on a smaller screen size, it doesn't, right? So in this instance, we want the width to be 70 VW, but maybe we want to set a minimum width. So here we can maybe set a minimum width of 900 pixels. So that way, if the screen size gets to a certain point, the box will stop shrinking. So as you can see here, this box is now taking up majority of the screen and looks really nice. And on the larger desktop, it also looks nice here as well. Now for tablet, you can see that this gets really large and it's like off the screen over here. So for tablet, I would typically do maybe 600 pixels. And then for mobile, I would do something like 250 pixels. So now we have a really nice responsive little section here for all screen sizes. And of course, you might want to apply what we learned in the last video with height. So if we grab this container and we switch this over to percentage, and then we set the actual section itself over to viewport height or viewport width, then the section actually is fully responsive. So not only does it shrink in height, but it also shrinks in width. And I think that looks really, really nice when it does stuff like this. But that's basically going to wrap it up for today's video. I hope it made sense and I hope you learned something from it. If you did, please consider giving this video a like and consider subscribing for more Wix and Editor X content coming out really soon. Thank you all again, and I'll see you all in the next one.